Hello everyone, and welcome to the second episode of our still unnamed Roseburn Avenue radio talk show. I'm John the guitarist and I prefer Vegemite to Bovril. If only I could find the latter less often in the local supermarket.
And I'm Zach the bassist, and I'd rather eat natto with Vegemite instead of a single Brussels sprout.
So we've decided to try something a little different this round. While playing D4DJ Groovy Mix, the rhythm game of the day, I found myself incredibly called out by the episode story of one of the first 4-star cards I drew out of the gacha pool. It kind of hits home in the midst of writing our third song.
I think it would hit home for any aspiring songwriter.
To add to the fun, and since an early arrangement of the third song happens to be playing in the background, we're also voice acting the script ourselves.
Please don't expect any award-winning performances. I mean, after all, you shouldn't expect much from a radio talk show that is still literally called Still Unnamed.
Alright, without further ado, here's the episode we were reacting to.
Please don't cringe.
Something doesn't feel quite right.
I tried arranging the new song. I want you to add the guitar, Nagisa. Will you listen to it for me?
Sure, leave it to me. I'll come up with the perfect riff for it.
Famous last words.
I tried to put up a good front, but now I'm stuck. Ugh. Well, this happens quite often, but just as often I end up in a different place after I get unstuck. And that's actually how songs get written sometimes.
In my case, I tend to overthink things a bit too much, and since I've got quite a lot going on in real life, I lack the motivation to grab my guitar to actually bring my ideas to life.
And it's midnight already. Which is, also by no coincidence, the time when most songwriting happens for us. If not when we're on staycation, but mostly in the dead of night.
The songwriting process on my end took much longer than I expected due to personal issues. But for the record, I did write the chord progressions at night, a bit earlier than you'd think, if I remember correctly. The vocal melodies, on the other hand, were all done during the daytime while I was indulging in much needed staycations.
I wonder if Aoi is awake.
Odds are I'll still be awake if John or any of the others reach out to me on Discord or Messenger at around 1:30 to 2 AM Japan time. It's a bad habit of mine.
Likewise, I tend to stay up pretty late myself. Zach's 2 AM is my 1 AM, so I think, objectively speaking, he sleeps later. Or not.
It depends. I'm trying to sleep earlier, and it is working for the most part. If I respond immediately, even though it's late, it's only because I've just switched off my lights when I get pinged.
Aoi!
One of the major downsides of all of us being based in different countries is that we can't simply call each other out of the blue, mainly due to time zone differences. The one time I was able to have a conversation with Rita, we had to plan things ahead.
What's up?
You're awake. Thank goodness.
So yeah, just out of curiosity, do you also react like this if I happen to respond at an ungodly hour?
I would be surprised at first, but realized that, on hindsight, I, a prisoner of the night, shouldn't be.
I'm not going to sleep yet. I was just returning some emails. In real life, I'll be doing some late night gaming around this time. Feel free to guess what I'm playing. Is something bothering you?
You know that song you wanted me to arrange? I think the guitar is too loud. Proper mixing makes or breaks a song. As an analogy, when you play a Bach fugue on the piano, there's always one voice that should be more prominent than the rest. For the bridge, I think the vocals should stand out more. I should point out here that every Roseburn Avenue bridge happens to have been quite vocals driven at the start, when the instruments hold back. The second half, not so. The instruments come back in full force to reinstate the song's momentum. The guitar could go chaka 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 tan chaka tan chaka 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 tan chaka tan.
Yeah, this totally reminds me of Yui from K-On! Whenever she strums the guitar for fun.
Chaka tan. I'll admit it, when I write music, I often don't have my guitar with me. But when I do, I sit around and make the best use of it.
There's nothing wrong with the guitar standing out in the bridge. That was actually my intention.
On the arrangement front, I attempt to do some give and take as between the instruments, where different instruments take precedence at different points in time. For Beneath the Waves, the bass has prominence in the second verse, the lead guitar in the second pre-chorus, and the keyboards in the second half of the bridge.
But I see what you mean about it being a bit too loud. I'll do something about vocals, Nagisa. But can you play the guitar as this?
What do you mean you do something about the vocals? That's the whole point of the song. We usually have the instrumental settled before lyrics are written and vocals are recorded, so typically the instrument parts are left as is by the time we deal with the vocals. The guitar can go chaka tan chaka tan chaka 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 tan chaka tan chaka chaka.
I want the guitar and vocals to clash. It will add tension to the song if both parts vie for dominance. Instead of getting them to clash head-on, I'll arrange it so they alternate or something.
When arranging, I try to keep some degree of polyphony, but usually I keep the arrangement as harmonious as I can. However, I've intentionally written parts that are meant to intertwine, such as the lead guitar in the pre-chorus of Beneath the Waves, playing against the vocal melody.
I'll change the vocals, but I want to keep the guitar part the same.
When we reach such an impasse, occasionally the best solution might well be to rearrange the part we have issues with. This could be just a part of the chorus as happened with Minato, and at worst, this will entail rewriting the entire chorus as in Beneath the Waves. For Tsubame, our third song, I'm considering simplifying the string parts to follow the guitar part, which I kept the same.
I think you and Sparky can make it work. How about it?
Let them clash? Do you really mean it?
Yeah, have at it.
You can be really extreme sometimes, you know that, Aoi.
I think I'm perfectly normal. But in order to make music, sometimes it's important to bend the rules, Nagisa, right?
Well, I'm not one for following the rules anyway. While I'm quite conservative theory-wise, I do admit that I get worried when I sound too conventional as well. Beneath the Waves was designed to sow the seeds of a unique Roseburn Avenue sound, but this is something we can grow through as we keep developing our own sound. While I do admit to playing to genre conventions and hardware limitations, I'd say my influences are diverse enough that I don't think I'm pinned down. I think my lead guitar lines are more violin-like for one, since I'm fonder of single-note melodic lead lines. In this sense, I agree with Aoi, the rules exist, but you need to know the rules in order to know how to bend or break them.
In my case, I've always been a punk rocker at heart. My songwriting has always been about keeping things as simple as possible. To be fair, this approach also has its limits if I end up coming up with something generic, which is why I'm interested in exploring alternative genres to take my punk rock approach to the next level when it is called for.
Thanks, Aoi. I see your point. I'll give it a try.
I look forward to hearing you play a guitar. Sorry to keep you up so late. And thanks for messaging to talk it over. Feel free to speak your mind anytime.
Sure thing. You have me wanting to try out some new things. I'm going to get back to recording my guitar.
Now that I've discovered how far GarageBand has come, I'm also quite eager to try out new things in my songwriting. Maybe I'll end up writing an album load of songs at the local Komedo coffee chain on my iPad.
I'm still quite conservative myself, relying on the traditional guitar into effects into workstation model. This means bringing a multi-effects pedal to the hotel in my guitar case. Otherwise, when I'm, having coffee, be it at home or at the cafe, I still capture the melodies that come to my mind by texting myself the melody in numeric notation.
Okay, it's late, so don't work too hard. I'll get back to returning my emails.
Good night.
Yeah, good night.
It's okay to clash, huh? I can't wait to come up with some new ideas. Okay, back to recording my guitar. Like we said at the start, all of this hits home more than it should. I think the songwriting blues is universal, after all. One might say there's probably only these many ways as to how to cook potatoes. Write a song.
It kinda depends though. Before I moved to Japan, I was actually on a bit of a songwriting kick, and I found it surprisingly easy to churn out songs. Well, at least at a faster pace than what we're doing for Roseburn Avenue. To be fair though, if you're writing songs for yourself, that is exactly it. You don't have to worry about whether your bandmates will be happy with what you write because your songs are entirely for you. The other thing is that it also helps if we were to live in the same city. It would definitely help with refining any songs we write because the feedback would be instantaneous compared to the waiting game we have to play right now.
To be fair, we all do have varying schedules happening at varying times, so I wouldn't be too maudlin about waiting, even though I often end up coming up with ideas in between the waits. And speaking of ideas, I also come up with bass ideas fairly fast, but half the time I don't find them refined enough for my liking. It's simple enough for me to come up with a chord progression and melody that I'm happy with, but at some point in time, arrangement also needs to come into play. That's where the challenge really is.
For me, at the start of my songwriting journey, the only things I had were a random number generator, a freemium drum VST, Reaper, an online copy of the French Guitar Cookbook, and a notebook to write down my personal challenge, the chords I would use, and the various chord progressions that would make up my song. Lasai. Those were the days.
While I had the benefit of formal music training in the piano, and I went on a basic drum course that my middle school offered, I found it quite hard to depart from that so-called harmonious foundation that I have. I would say I think I tend towards Baroque music, if only because I would keep those pieces on repeat on the CD player at home, and my piano teacher figured that I was at my best chewing up those complex parts and pieces of that era, as opposed to the more demanding dynamics of later, with somewhat simpler pieces.
To me, I only had one simple rule. Will I like my creation well enough to put it on repeat at least 10 times in a row, finding something new to like with each repetition? And for an extra bonus, will my own creations figuratively bring me back to my childhood and adolescent years? I think that a song that would be the basis for Beneath the Waves, The Cloud, is probably the best work I've ever done, despite its simplicity.
I think it's also got to pass the same test for me, at least for the repetitions. That doesn't include as many times as I need to be satisfied with what I've created or rearranged. And it's a bonus if I get a eureka moment out of it as well, such as rewriting the chorus of Beneath the Waves after the band deemed the original demo chorus to be too weak.
With L'Eclat, the basis for the song came about from Different World by Iron Maiden, with me literally copying the song structure of the latter while using my own programmed drums. That's why it felt powerful. The original chorus had a lot going on for it, and when combined with my punk rock approach to melodic guitar, everything went to the next level.
Inspiration for the chorus that eventually made it to Beneath the Waves ultimately came from a Mongolian rock ballad that shuffled on Spotify while I was driving.
I'm a massive fan of the German folk rock group D'Artagnan, and I think there's definitely some scope to incorporate the sound into our future songs, which will definitely help distinguish us from Rosalia, and, to a certain extent, Element's Garden.
And thanks to you, I've gotten myself immersed in them as well. It's a breath of fresh air from what we're doing, especially with every new sound, a new influence coming up every song or every other song.
So does that make us more like a cross between Rosalia and Hello Happy World, with the subgenre hopping?
That almost gives me ideas, but I've never felt tied down to any subgenre, Project Asakaze notwithstanding.
I feel oddly tempted to look for a DJ turntable app on my iPad now.
I do look forward to that, and in fact I wouldn't be surprised if we walk straight into EDM territory. This has been the second episode of the currently unnamed Roseburn Avenue talk show. This is John the guitarist, along with Zach on... yeah. And we'll see you next time.